Get into that Chad Daybell hearing and speak to you a little bit later. Joining us now is criminal defense attorney and former Los Angeles County prosecutor Josh Ritter. Josh, thank you so much for being on the show here with the judge and I. I want to begin by this idea of the insurance benefits, but added on top of that, I mean, clearly, as you mentioned, Judge, that goes to motive, and that's what makes you think. But here's what I'm going to say. When you start seeing that he's talking to people about stuff and he's saying that there are no kids in the picture, he wants to add Lori on to one of these policies, no kids in the picture. We've heard this a couple of different times. To me, all of this together suggests a plan or a scheme, which is all key to getting this jury to the act of conspiracy.
Yeah, I was thinking about it myself too, and all of this evidence that we're hearing, what it really boils down to is that these two did not behave like we would expect people to behave under the circumstances. They behaved suspiciously, and that is what a large part of this case is about. You guys mentioned it. This is a lot of motive evidence. This is a lot of consciousness of guilt evidence. They're just not acting as we would expect two people to be acting, especially when children are missing. So you've got, you just heard from Kenley's report there that you've got him showing up to ask about the life insurance within days of his wife's death. You've got them in Hawaii while the children are still missing, inquiring about the life insurance and the benefits of all of that. Yeah, that all goes towards motive, but it also is just highly suspicious in how we would expect people to be acting under the circumstances. And I think that's going to have a huge impact on the jury. But the question is it going to bring it home as far as satisfying the elements of conspiracy for murder?
And I was moving all my stuff around while we were sitting together here because I wanted to pull out my anchor memo to make sure I got my charges right. But we know that not only is she charged with the conspiracy, she's charged with the actual murder of JJ and Tylee. And my question for you, Josh, is there enough evidence in your mind yet? I know that we have the hair that was on the tape that belongs to her DNA on that hair on the duct tape, and we know duct tape was on JJ and the way he was bound. But is it enough to really convince this jury, not just conspiracy, but murder against Lori Vallow Daybell?
Yeah, that's the question I've been struggling with myself, too, because, again, high on motive, right? I mean, we've got the motive that they wanted to be together. We've got the motive that she had these fringe religious views and everything else. But what actually connects her forensically or otherwise to the murders beforehand? And you're right to point that out. Conspiracy is a lot more broad. It can include planning. It can include taking steps in furtherance that don't actually have to do with her taking part in the actual murders. But what have they done to connect her to these actual murders? Now, that hair was huge. I think it was the first piece of evidence, really, that connected her forensically to JJ's body. But again, a good defense attorney could talk about transference. And listen, this is her child, so her hair is going to be everywhere in that house and perhaps on his clothing. I don't know if they got that much into it in cross as you would have expected, but again, I think that is the one kind of loose end I expect to see from the prosecution that we might have to wait for closing arguments to hear about.
You know, what's interesting, we're going to get into that not right now, but I have a theory on that, and I think there's some evidence that ties her in very well if you wanted to get to the murder. And I submit, you don't even have to get to the murder. I mean, the charges are there, but again, we've talked about it many times. Conspiracy, same basic penalties as the underlying crime. And I want to read quickly what the law is for conspiracy, because I think they have gone far beyond proving this. It says if two or more persons combine or conspire to commit any crime or offense prescribed by the laws of the state of Idaho, and one or more of such persons does any act to affect the object of that, then they each shall be punishable upon conviction in the same manner and to the same extent as the underlying crime. So it doesn't require a lot, and I think we've got many, many acts, not the least of which is her lying about where her children are. That is in furtherance of the conspiracy, and whoever did it only takes one person to do an act.
No, you're absolutely right. I think they've got a lot of evidence connecting Chad, a lot of evidence connecting her brother Alex Cox. But if I could push back on you gently for just a moment, a defense attorney, I hope this is what they're going to argue in this case, I imagine they will, is they're going to say, yeah, you have a lot of her kind of acting suspiciously afterwards and her saying a lot of suspicious and untrue things afterwards, but what do you have to prove she had knowledge of the planning and participation in this actual murder beforehand? And that might be the crux of the whole case when it comes down to the conspiracy charge against her.
I think it's the behaviors. What do you think?
Well, let me ask a quick question. So Matt, so it has to be after? So for instance, we know that she lied to police about where her children were. She asked a friend to lie about it, Melanie Gibb. She told her to lie about it. Are those not acts in furtherance? You're trying to throw the police off the trail. You must know that something had happened badly to these children. Are you saying that that doesn't show that she knew that they were going to be killed and that her assistance afterwards is maybe a different charge, maybe, you know, accessory after the fact or something?
You're absolutely right. Those are the arguments that both sides are going to make. The prosecution is going to say, listen, no one behaves this way unless they took part in it somehow, and they're now trying to cover up the crime they were a participant in. The defense is going to say, no, all that proves is that she found about it after the fact. And if that's true, if it was only after the fact that they have any evidence of, they can make an argument that, like you said, she's only an accessory after the fact because she didn't take part in the actual planning or any steps in furtherance of the murders themselves. I agree with you, though. That might not be a winning argument, but I think that might be the argument they make.
All right, and Josh, I want to apologize. My previous guest was Matt. I was calling you Matt. I truly apologize for that.
No problem.
So I hope you accept my apology there.
And we are going to take a break.
worries.
But first, Michael, I have to push back a little bit against the conspiracy and murder. Yes, the sentences are the same. But I feel like with all the family members invested in this case, desperate, searching for JJ and Tylee for so long, being lied to by Lori, I don't know that they would feel like it's justice if it's conspiracy versus murder. I just want to throw that out there. We can talk about it more later.
And
That's just my